Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Tabs Leaf Glover, and today we're going to be covering Richard Avedon and Steven Meisel. I thought it'd be fun to compare their photos, take a look at their compositions, and see if anything's similar, and also see who has the better images overall. We'll mark these layers, and we'll make Richard Avedon red and Steven Meisel purple, and if they tie, we'll just leave it blank. As I was doing research and trying to find some great images of theirs, I found quite a few more Steven Meisel's images that were better, but that could be just because Richard Avedon was an earlier photographer. But either way, we'll take a look at what they have here. But in this comparison, we have nice aspect of view on the hat is creating a nice shape. If you blur your eyes, you can see how it's kind of creating that nice bold shape there. And it's interesting how they're putting the hat before the words, as Vogue puts the words over the image, kind of distracting on the right side here, but right here it prioritizes the hat rather than the name of the magazine. And this one, it just creates a little bit of a distraction because the Vogue name is higher intensity orange than the orange of her earrings, which makes sense. They probably want you to read the title and have it to stand out amongst that kind of busy background. So you can see the comparison of the oranges there. This is the title, and then this is the orange of her earring. So if we remove the title, we can see how there's less distractions. It's not really dragging our eyes to the top where it's not really necessary. I don't think they should prioritize the name of the magazine. Obviously, it's a reoccurring brand that's present. So what we want to focus on mainly is probably the image they're presenting to us and then the typography around it. But when we take that Vogue out, we get a lot more attention back on the subject here. But aside from the Vogue title kind of distracting us from the image, we have nice figure ground relationship because they're both on a blank canvas there, and all these words are easily read. So who would win? I think Richard Avedon kind of wins this one, just because if you squint your eyes, you can see it's a unique shape, and then on the right, we can't really tell what it is. It's the left side is kind of abstract and interesting, but the right side, it kind of just looks clumpy, even though her hair is pretty cool looking, and she's really pretty, and her makeup and her jewelry is nice. If we squint our eyes, it just kind of all goes away, and then we're left with the shape. So we have better visual clarity on the left when we're squinting. So we'll give it to Richard Avedon for this one. So we'll mark that red. Here's another one. For squinting, we see that this image on the right definitely has way more contrast than the image on the left. And we can see that the bazaar is kind of the same contrast, has a similar contrast as the pink. So it's giving us that pulsating feeling. If you've watched the complementary colors video, you'll notice that we talk about this, how the complementary colors should have enough contrast between them so it doesn't give us that pulsating feeling. But when we edit that out and make it brighter or darker, we've got it lighter here and then darker here, and we can see how it's easily read and that pulsating feeling goes away. But when we desaturate it, we can see how they're kind of similar there, which is fine. It doesn't have to be high contrast. It's just something to make note of. It doesn't have to have a lot of contrast. It can create that pulsating feeling for the title here. It's not really that important for them to make it stand out, and it's blending in with the image, so it's not distracting from the face, so that's good. So it just depends on what you're going for. If you want the title to be read clearly or the image to be read without distractions at the top. So when we desaturate it, we can see how there's not much contrast here around the edges, and just her face is kind of popping out at us, but this one's really contrasty. So that just depends on what you're going for. They both have nice figure ground relationship and nice lighting in this one. It's really beautiful lighting, but the title is kind of distracting us from her face because of the high contrast in the title, the light against the dark. So when we desaturate it, you can see how much contrast is at the top there. So when we cover that up, we can see how much attention comes back down to the subject, and you can see how pretty that lighting is in the face and all that. They both have one eye being covered, which creates a little bit of mystery, but overall, I think for creativity, I would give it to Richard Avedon again, just because that's a really creative image and it's thinking outside of the box. This is a beautiful portrait, nice lighting. It's just, it's nothing outside of the box. We'll give this one to Richard Avedon. This one, again, we have kind of like the desaturated look with hand coloring because he's an older photographer, and that's kind of what they were doing back then. They would colorize separately. This one has a similar look. I tried to match all these images up to kind of similar looks. But if we look on the right, we've got more creativity, and we've got that diagonal in her face, the lighting, nice figure ground relationship on both of them. But this one's just a little bit off center, and we have this negative space on the left here. This one's nicely balanced, and we're getting a movement with her arm going kind of around, almost like an elliptical shape, starting right here and going around her head here. So we've got that. That's nice. The title's not too bold this time, and it's kind of blending in and allowing the subject to come forward, not distracting us too bad. The colors in this one is really nice. The pink goes really well with the yellow and the nice subtle tones in her face. That's also a nice image and cover, but I think this one wins. So Steven Meisel gets that one. Here's another one. Creativity on the left, pretty interesting, but it almost kind of looks a little bit cheesy. That's perhaps what they're going for, but the wardrobe has nice textures, interesting shapes that are almost echoed in her eye. I think maybe it would have been stronger if they echoed these shapes, these flower shapes, in her eye a little bit better, but this has a lot more petals than these. These have 5, and this one has about 6, so they're not really echoing that shape to create that unity there. That would have made the image a little bit better, perhaps. And the makeup's not too bad, but I think overall this one's simpler. The shapes are interesting, the repeating shapes, the simple colors, pretty face, nice and simple. Got a nice figure ground relationship in both of them. And if we desaturate this, we can see how the contrast is pulling us a little bit more. And I know maybe this is an older image, but the hair is not as attractive as this kind of hat and things like that. So I would give this one to Steven Meisel also. And a lot of this is based on my taste, but I am trying to point out certain design techniques that could affect the image and the visual clarity and things. This one is a nice comparison because Marilyn Monroe was the Madonna back in those days. So if we look at these, they both have nice lighting. I think the lighting on the Steven Meisel image is a little bit better. We've got that nice shadow shape with the contrast on her chin here. That's really nice. This lighting in here is really soft. They both have kind of like a depressing gaze, kind of like a solemn gaze, but this one's coming down and to the right, which kind of makes the image a little bit unbalanced from left to right, but she's just to the right of that vertical center line and she's gazing right, so it leaves a lot of empty negative space. So if this were positioned so she's maybe like right here and looking right, it'd be a little bit more balanced. This one, she's to the left of that vertical center line and looking left, but we have some nice context over here with her hair and the contrast there, and then the blouse as well. So it's nicely balanced. So I would think this one would go to Steven Meisel. But if you like this kind of stuff, I have links in the description below that help artists surpass their plateau and reach the master level. So check that out when you can. I really appreciate it. These are really similar images, and probably Steven Meisel was inspired by Richard Avedon. They're both probably wearing wigs or extensions, something like that, to make the hair all bulky like that. But interesting how he's leaving enough negative space to capture all of the hair here and capture that nice shape of their head. Like this one over here, he clips it off just a bit, which is fine. It doesn't really need to be fully captured, but they both have nice figure grind relationship. The gaze on this one, this model here, is looking straight at us and the eye is covered. That creates a little bit of mystery, but I think this gaze is a little bit better than this one, which shows just a little bit of her eye here. I think maybe it would be better if we just capture her whole side profile of the face, or a little bit more of this eyeball, something, but it's just, I'm wanting more of the eye here or less. But right here as it is, it's just not enough. And it looks a little bit weird with all those eyelashes on there. So it just kind of looks like a caterpillar on her eye or something. So a little bit distracting. But her forehead also has this kind of bump here. The way it meets the eyebrow, it's just a little bit distracting right there in the eye. Other than that, I like this image. So I think overall I would give it to Steven Meisel because he's capturing this diagonal, an arabesque in her hair coming down here and swooping to more here. More movement in the hair. I like the face better, and the back just giving us more context. I like how they're including the arm, so I would give Steven Meisel that one. Same kind of deal. They're both focusing on unique hair for these models, and this one's a little bit more messy compared to Richard Avedon's, and Richard's kind of shooting downward onto this model and she's looking up, so we get that kind of like oval shape of her body, her upper torso, and we've got these unique shapes coming around like a snake almost. This one's a nice shape though, because we have kind of that arabesque going in the hair and coming down. But I would say this gaze is a little bit worse than this one. This one's more straightforward, and this one, it's hard to tell if she's looking at us or looking a little bit more this way. And her face is washed out. We don't really have a lot of form there. We're missing her cheekbone, so it's kind of flat on the face, and the hair's kind of frizzy when compared to this one, cleaner. And the jean jacket, it doesn't really match the style of the hair. Maybe if she had a dress on like this woman or something like that, it would match a little bit better, but this elegant hair doesn't match the simple wardrobe of a jean jacket. They both have nice figure grind relationship. This one's clipped off at the top a little bit, which is fine. No edge flicker, that's good. So I would give this one to Richard Avedon. It's like splitting hairs with these guys. They're both really good and both really talented, just pointing out certain things that work better than others. These two images are kind of similar. This one shows more of the body, and this one's showing a very compressed background. This one, you definitely have figure ground relationship issues where her body is overlapping that structure in the background. It would be better if this was all white. Nice way he added this though. The highlight in the binoculars kind of matches her head, how it curves down this way. So that's nice. This one, we have edge flicker in the upper left corner. I'm not sure if that's just the image, but we also have this, which is kind of distracting, this amount of contrast, this contrast over here, and then all of this contrast. So all that would be fixed if they got rid of this and just reduce the contrast a little bit. They don't have to edit it all out, just reduce the contrast. So her hair is clearly defined against the background, and the hat is clearly defined, and then reduce this contrast and see which one looks best. But you can see how clear it is now with all that subdued, and then you'd probably just edit this out completely. But that's how you can fix the contrast around the edges. Oh, we'll just say that one's a tie. This one, I would say, is a tie also because they both suffer kind of from figure ground relationship. Like this one is a interesting image. It's definitely more interesting with the elephants. It's outside of the box thinking and unique. The only problem is her dark dress hitting the dark shadows of the elephants. If they dodged that a little bit more, made it lighter, she would be clearly separated from that shadow area a little bit better. Same with this one. If they dodged the streets a little bit better, maybe this background and her hair, if they made that more subdued, like some of the street photos that we've seen, they reduced the contrast of the background. That way this foreground has a chance to pop off. So I'm just scribbling this in real quick, and then you can reduce it and reduce that contrast in the background, and then the foreground pops off a little bit better. You can do that over here too so it matches, but you can see how the image, the subject, pops off the background a little bit better. And then over here we could do the same, just make the background a little bit lighter. Not extreme, you want it to be subtle, so add a little bit more contrast by her arm, and then that would improve the image a little bit. So this one's a tie also. We'll just keep that tie. These are two great images, both showing nice movement. This one has kind of repeating diagonals in the wardrobe and then the leg right here. Well, that's nice. But this one I think is a little bit better because we have that aspect of view of the whole body walking her stride, and then the hair also coming down here, creating an arabesque, and then the purse as well. So if we're squinting, we can identify this subject a little bit better than this one, even though this shape is really nice with the diagonals and things. I would say this one would win in a comparison just because we can identify it better. Maybe if her face was showing and we had an aspect of view side profile of her face, that would be nice. But both have nice figure grind relationship. So we'll give that one to Steven. This one as well, both excellent photos. One is better than the other in my opinion, and when we're comparing the two, I would say this one on the left would win by Richard because we have that nice arabesque coming in from that rope here, the repeating diagonals here. Just the aspect of view, really nice, spread limbs, and then her face is well lit and her gazing direction is nice, going from right to left, and there's plenty of negative space here. This one, she's a little bit more on the right of that vertical center line. She's looking right, which is fine. There's enough negative space here to help with the balance. Kind of an aspect of view, it'd be better maybe if her arm were spread out more, and then maybe her other arm kind of going different directions too. So if we squint, we can see a really unique shape here. Richard Avedon focuses on shape as we've seen, and this one is also unique, but it's not as unique as this one. So this is really creative. This one's creative too, but just not as much. So we'll give that one to Richard. Both have nice figure grind relationship, nice lighting. These were really creative. This one, I'm not sure how they did that with the shapes of the head and stuff, but he's got separated shapes here. Each face is separated from the other. Same with this one, separated shapes, unique composition, interesting toning and color here. This one's a nice stark shapes. He's really good with his shapes. Only thing with this one is perhaps all these dark colors are blending in together. So if you squint your eyes, you can't really tell what's going on other than what their faces and their arms are doing. And there's only a couple arms that stand out, half of this one. And then if we're squinting, it's just their faces and this woman's torso. But if we're squinting on this one, we can tell what's going on, and we kind of see that stark, unique shape that's really interesting to look at. So we'll give that one to Richard. This is a simple portrait in both of them. This one's interesting because it has a snake in it, creating an arabesque. Nice textures here in the cloth. He's looking straight at the camera. This one has really nice textures as well with the hair. She's looking right at us as well, and then the big hat. I would say this one could be a tie. They both have nice figure ground relationship, both have nice textures, nice balance. So I would say that one would be a tie. This one got a couple different things going on. This one is simpler, more edgy. She's got a cigarette here, nice stripes, nice balance, figure ground relationship. This one too, stripes, balance, figure ground relationship. This has a little bit more context in the scene, so I would say this one is a tie as well. Got nice gazing direction in both of them, so we'll say that's a tie. These are both nice images as well. This one has better movement, this one. Of course, I couldn't find exact matches like this one. Steven Meisel doesn't really have a lot of images that have a lot of movement. Avedon really has a lot of images that focus on movement, but it's just different styles. That's fine. But these are both great black and white portraits. Both have nice figure ground relationship. Both have significant contrast. If we're squinting, we see how they look. This one's definitely creating a more unique shape. That's part of his style. And this one has a shape we can identify with the pose. So if we had to choose, I would say this is another tie because they're both capturing the models in a unique way. All right, here's another one. More movement in this one. Then he's also got, Steven Meisel actually has some movement in this pose. She's kicking her leg up and the cloth is moving around. Same with this one, kicking her leg up, cloth moving around. Let's have them both black and white just to see the shapes. Definitely have more contrast on the left, but Steven Meisel's got a more unique shape than Richard Avedon, which is different because Richard usually focuses on the shape, but they're both kind of blending together right here in the middle. It's not really an aspect of view. If you're squinting, the shape's kind of a little bit confused, especially with his leg hitting the other leg here. So they both have nice figure ground relationship, but if we're judging the composition and creativity and uniqueness, I would say this one has a better shape, so we can give that one to Steven Meisel. All right, so let's add all these up. 6 for Steven Meisel and 5 for Richard Avedon. So Steven Meisel wins this little fun competition. And I kind of picked that up as I was searching through all the images. Steven Meisel seemed to have a little bit more great images to choose from rather than Richard Avedon. And that could be just because Richard Avedon is an older photographer and he perhaps doesn't have a lot of images online. Maybe they're more in books and things like that. So definitely an interesting comparison. And this was in the comments below. So if you guys have any other photographers you'd like me to compare or just to dig into, even painters or movies, leave a comment below and let me know which one it is and I'll see what I can do. But that's it for today. I really appreciate the support and I'll talk to you guys later.